Welcome to Starsnip Gossip. Netflix just fired back at Tyra Banks, and this fight is getting a lot messier. Tyra says Netflix turned her own words into a damaging story about her past on America's Next Top Model, but Netflix is basically saying, "You agreed to this," and now the streamer wants her entire defamation lawsuit thrown out. Here's what started the war. In February 2026, Netflix released Reality Check, Inside America's Next Top Model, a three-part documentary looking back at the controversies surrounding the show, including accusations of exploitation, humiliating challenges, body shaming, and disturbing incidents involving former contestants. Tyra participated in the documentary, expecting what her lawsuit describes as a candid conversation about the show's successes and failures. But according to Tyra, what viewers eventually saw was something very different from what she believed she had agreed to. Tyra claims she gave the filmmakers a roughly 3.5-hour interview, but only about 16 minutes made it into the final documentary. Her lawyers argued that those clips were selectively cut, rearranged, and stripped of context to create what they call a false and defamatory narrative. They say Tyra actually took responsibility for some of the controversial decisions from the show, but those parts were largely left out. And then comes the most explosive part: Shandi Sullivan. Shandi was a contestant on the second cycle of America's Next Top Model. During the original show, her encounter with a male model in Italy was presented as a cheating scandal. But years later, Shandi described the experience differently, saying she had been heavily intoxicated, blacked out, and now believes she was unable to consent. The Netflix documentary revisited that incident and examined how the production handled it. Tyra's lawsuit claims the documentary made viewers believe something much more serious about her: that she knowingly allowed a contestant to be sexually assaulted, exploited the situation for ratings, and then could not even remember the story when asked about it years later. Tyra says that implication is completely false. Her lawyers point to one particular edit. In the documentary, Tyra is asked if she remembers Shandi's story. She looks upward, pauses, and says before the footage moves on. According to Tyra's lawsuit, the full interview actually included her nodding and saying that she did remember Shandi's story. Her lawyers argue that removing those moments completely changed the meaning of the scene. But Netflix is not backing down. In fact, this is where the story just escalated. On August 14th, Netflix filed a motion asking a California federal court to dismiss Tyra's lawsuit. The company also filed an anti-SLAPP motion, arguing that the case attacks protected documentary and editorial activity. Netflix's argument is basically this: Tyra knew she was participating in a documentary, and she agreed that the filmmakers would control the final edit. Netflix says she signed an agreement giving the filmmakers the right to edit her interview and acknowledging that she had no right to review or approve the finished documentary. The company argues that she cannot turn a disagreement over editing into a defamation case. And Netflix has another argument that could make this fight even more uncomfortable for Tyra. The company points out that she created, hosted, and executive produced America's Next Top Model for years, meaning she herself was involved in deciding what footage viewers saw, what was left out, and how stories were presented. Netflix is essentially arguing that the documentary simply turned that same editorial lens back onto Tyra and the show. Netflix also disputes the idea that the documentary accused Tyra of personally being in a position to stop what happened to Shandi. According to Netflix's filing, the documentary attributed decisions about the original footage to executive producer Ken Mock and broadcast standards, not Tyra. Netflix argues that showing Tyra pause when asked about Shandi does not automatically mean the documentary claimed she had forgotten the incident. But Tyra's side is fighting back too. Her lawyers say this is not simply a celebrity complaining because she disliked an edit. They argue the real issue is whether a documentary can take a person's recorded words, remove crucial context, and create a materially different impression. They have even challenged Netflix to release Tyra's complete, unedited interview so viewers can compare the raw footage with what appeared in the documentary. There are also other controversial allegations surrounding the old show that the documentary revisited. Former contestant Kenya Hill discussed being groped by a male model and being repeatedly criticized about her weight. Dionne Walters discussed being placed in a crime scene-themed photo shoot despite her mother having been shot and left paralyzed. The documentary also revisited accusations involving body image, exploitation, and contestants being pushed into uncomfortable situations for television. These are allegations and recollections from people involved. And this is where the rumors and speculation online get intense. Some viewers are speculating that Tyra's lawsuit is partly about protecting her reputation and business opportunities after the documentary reignited criticism of ANTM. Others think Netflix may be trying to send a message that celebrities cannot participate in documentaries and then sue simply because the final edit makes them uncomfortable. The biggest unanswered question is the footage. If Netflix really has hours of Tyra's unedited interview, will the court ever force that material into the public record? And if the full footage shows Tyra saying exactly what she claims she said, could that strengthen her argument? Or will the court agree with Netflix that editorial decisions, even controversial ones, do not automatically equal defamation? And honestly, the most explosive part may still be sitting inside that unreleased interview. Because if those 3.5 hours ever become public, viewers could finally see what Tyra actually said before Netflix shaped it into the 16 minutes that made the final cut. So the question now is not just, did Tyra get a bad edit? It's, what exactly was left on the cutting room floor? And until that footage sees the light of day, this Tyra Banks versus Netflix battle is far from over.